And now, the Brian Kilmeade Show welcomes back
Mr. Sunday, the receptive voice, the king.
all that and so much more.
You have misplayed this so badly because we had a wonderful little thing going here.
Yep.
Chris Wallace.
Chris Wallace, welcome back. Love your promo. God, that's as close as I'll ever get to getting inside your house. You in a sweater, relaxing in the living room, standing, looking into a camera. I imagine you do that every day.
That's true. It's not just Fox News Sunday. I do that with Lorraine a lot. Actually, they did a PSA, and I was sitting in front of, about we're all in this together and get help. And Lorraine was the camera person, and let me say, as a camera person, she's a pretty good chef.
She's a best-selling author. Chris, no, it looks good. I was surprised I wasn't in the promo, but maybe you're the better person to bring America together, and maybe they'll get the wrong message with me and you on the same promo. Maybe I take away from you.
Really? We're at this point, and your little petty concerns about your career, that's what you're worried about? Why wasn't I in the PSA?
Not worried. Just having fun. Anthony Fauci was...
When I saw that I was in it and you weren't, I did get a shot. It's probably the best I've felt in 3 weeks.
Probably. Finally, some truth serum for Chris Wallace, who's got his show on Sunday. And, man, those Sunday shows me more than ever. Sets us up for the whole week, always, especially now. So we had Dr. Fauci on, and he is not high on hydroxychloroquine. But Dr. Oz is. He looked at this Chinese study, what the French are doing, what the Spanish are doing, and he's intrigued by what's happening. The Chinese doctors are giving it to themselves as a preventative because they're going to be into this, and they're having a lot of success with it. Here's what he said, cut 27.
I think we're still getting comfortable with the data. Just to highlight the study, it's the number one solution used by physicians. Now, we don't know for sure how effective it's going to be. We have one randomized trial that's positive, one that was negative. We have, generally speaking, it seems to be safe, which is the first thing you want to assess. But American physicians desire large randomized trials. It's still early. We'll need more done. But since we're marching into war, could we work with this army and bring them along?
And the hydroxychloroquine is something that I've interviewed 2 people already on Fox and Friends that had it. It took them off a respirator. One took it off a respirator. They had said goodbye to their family. We have somebody in the New York Post say it said it saved me. And I have a lot of people writing, so I want to get it to my family. I don't understand the holdup. Are you frustrated too?
No, I'm not. Look, I understand that there's some anecdotal evidence, but then I saw something that said that certain people, if you give it to them, it can cause fatal heart arrhythmia. The answer is that these medicines, you just don't start popping pills because somebody down the street says, hey, I took this and I feel great. Look, if you've got somebody who's
did I characterize it that way? China's not down the street.
Here's my point. They're talking about doing it for compassionate care. If somebody is in really serious trouble and it looks like he's on a downward slope and there's nothing to help him, fine, give it to him. He's got nothing to lose. But the idea that you're going to give it to your wife and your kids because, it's somebody down the street like that, I'm not so sure I like that idea. I don't think science and practical medicine and tests go out the window. To me, that's dangerous.
If you're having trouble breathing, right. If you're having trouble breathing, and you got a study from Spain, a study from France, and a study from China that's all positive on this, but nothing's 100%. Would you want it?
Trouble breathing? No. On a ventilator? Probably. Because at a certain point, as they call it compassionate care, you got nothing to lose. And let me incidentally say, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, I am very dubious of anything I'm hearing out of China. Do you believe, we now have so many more cases than China had, and China was where it started, and they had to shut down an entire province for 2 months, and Wuhan was the epicenter. Do I think that I don't know what the exact number is anymore, but it's just a small fraction of the number of cases in China that we have had. Look, they don't. It's not a democracy. They don't have transparent, information. Do I think that there's a good chance? And we know now, according to reports, that the U.S. intelligence community feels that they lied to us about the extent of the disease. So, you know, France, in other countries, yeah, listen, I'll listen to that. China, I'm not so sure.
I hear you, absolutely. What happened is Dr. Oz has a show over there, so he's got his hooks into the medical community, so he actually knows them personally, and that's what he gives it a little bit extra street cred. I'm not going to tell you who to book on your show, but he's really good.
Well, can I just say one thing, and I'm being serious about this.
Yeah.
I think you and I, because we're not doctors, we don't play them on TV, and I think, you know, our colleagues as well, should be really careful about dispensing, you know, medical advice or hopes just because of the fact, you know, people listen, they hear that, and they may, you know, go out and talk to your doctor. If your doctor says take it, then take it. If he doesn't say take it, I wouldn't touch anything.
Because I've been writing prescriptions all week. Is that a mistake?
Well, here's the question. Can they read your handwriting? Because if they can, we know you're not a legitimate doctor.
Exactly. Good point. Now I'm going off the doctors who I actually speaking to them on and offline. But the China's a huge deal. We basically have a détente with them, according to the Washington Post today. We kind of have a truce because we're in the middle of this to stop with the ridiculous comments that they're making that the U.S. Army started it. They were pushing that propaganda in a Russian-type, Mueller report type style that we're behind all this and pushing it on the rest of the world. Countries like India and Germany aren't buying it, but I worry about the others. But now it seems like we're in a détente and a sprint to try to get ahead of this because they're experiencing a second wave. I worry about this, Chris. Let the scientists and the epidemiologists work on it. I get it. But I also want the economists at the table too, because when we get up from this, what's going to be left of our country? Don't you think that's an important element of this story?
Of course it's an important element, and when you see that 10 million people have filed for the first time for unemployment claims in the last 2 weeks, it's heartbreaking. You know, that's 10 million people who don't know how they're going to pay their rent or how they're going to pay for food or how, God forbid, they get the virus, how they're going to pay for that. It is heartbreaking. On the other hand, again, I would follow the scientists, and when you have Dr. Fauci, and I understand he's not an economist, and I understand he's just looking at it from a public health point of view, but if we don't have public health, then we're never going to restart the economy because, you know, if you let loosen the reins too quickly, then people are going to go back to restaurants or people are going to go to sporting events, and then the virus is going to come back with a fury. And if you think it was bad shutting it down once, I mean, we're now, 3 weeks into a real lockdown, and it's painful. Look, we all know it's painful. But, you know, if we go through this for a month or 2 months and then let our foot off the pedal and people go back and we get a second wave, it's going to be much worse. So I just think, you know, I'd rather be overly cautious. And I think if you're going to listen to somebody, I mean, look at the president. The president was talking about Easter, and then, you know, he got the facts, he got these models, and he went, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to extend the guidelines for a month till the end of April. And people are saying it shouldn't just be a state-by-state lockdown. It should be a national lockdown. I don't think you can rush the facts. And this is, yes, it has economic implications, serious economic implications, but this is ultimately a public health crisis. You got to solve that first.
The other thing that bothers me more than anything else is American companies not doing the right thing. I thought the president say, listen, I got the Defense Protection Act. I don't have to use it. You know, GM is responding, Ford's responding, 3M's responding. They're coming together in a massive way. I don't really have to put the hammer down. Then this story emerges that 3M is not selling to FEMA, even though they promised. They're selling to the highest bidder, and they're trying to get a hold of this story because they say it's the distributors that are doing it. Now the president said, now I got to put the Defense Protection Act on you over face masks that they're sending to other countries. Jared Moskowitz was on with Tucker last night. He's an expert in this area, and he says this is something that's got to stop. Let's listen to cut 48.
What I asked 3M is that, are they aware that their authorized distributors, U.S. companies, are telling me that the reason why our orders are being pushed down is because foreign countries are showing up with cash to purchase the orders. The idea that an American company is selling masks away from our hospitals, away from our doctors, away from the real heroes on the front lines is something that, will long be investigated after this, but it's really criminal.
So now he put the Defense Production Act on that. Just as an American, does that outrage you?
Yeah, it does, but I got to say it's a little more complicated than that because we're not talking about a 3M factory in Minnesota that's selling overseas. We're talking about 3M, which has a big factory in Singapore and has all kinds of connections to Asia and routinely sells to Asia and has contracts with Asia and, is taking masks they make in Asia and selling them in Asia. Now, having said that, you're 3M, you're an American company. Do I think that their top priority should be to the U.S.? Absolutely. I think that we need to take care of our own. Then if we get through this, we can take care of other people. But, I agree, and I'm glad the president is invoking the Defense Production Act, and I think he probably should have done it some more. I understand this feeling of, well, if we just use it as a threat, American companies will come too. But we've seen with General Motors and 3M now that sometimes you have to do it, and maybe, one of the things that I think we've done all along in this is we've been too gentle in terms of stay-at-home orders, in terms of the Defense Production Act. There was something that I think both Birx and Fauci said, and I'm going to listen to the doctors, that if you think you're even with this virus, you're behind it. So my feeling is, just get ahead, get ahead, and do everything that you've got.
A couple of things. I'm just reading this morning, I think it was in the New York Times, it said part of the reason was these N95 masks were for construction, and when they realized that there might be some liability issues if the hospitals were using them, it didn't come out perfect, they backed off selling them but didn't communicate that to the administration, where the administration could say, we back you, FDIC style, go just give them to us. And the lack of candor is what struck the administration. They thought they were doing it and they found something else. They went on to say in a lengthy explanation that the administration requested 3M cease exporting respirators that are currently manufactured in the U.S. And Canada and send them here. And they were sending them overseas. And the fact that FEMA shows up, just by the way the government works, without a check in their hand, they were going to other people. And that's what bothers me the most. But,
I
we
agree,
have so much.
And that's why,
yeah.
And that's why I say, as far as the Defense Production Act is concerned, I know you trust American companies and you don't want to sit there and be dictating, like a socialist country. But at this point, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'd rather say, look, we're invoking all of this, and the next time you hear from FEMA, this is the power of law.
Right. Chris, real quick, you guess?
Yeah, well, we're going to have a fascinating guest on, Bill Gates. If people haven't done it, they should do it. Just Google. Everybody's got time on their hands.
TED Talk.
Bill Gates, TED Talk 2015. 5 years ago, March of 2015, he said everything that's happening now and what we needed to do to gear up, and he was ignored at that point by the Obama administration, by countries around the world.
Chris,
and he
really got a hard break in 10 seconds.
An expert. And we're going to have him on the show also, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
Awesome. Chris Wallace, Fox News Sunday. Thanks.